going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our almost twice weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And today we are here for the finale of the main stories for Phyrexia All Will Be One, Assault on New Phyrexia, Episode 5, Inevitable Resolutions by Seanan McGuire. My quick review at the top of this one is, I thought this one was good. It's obviously important for the story, and so you should read it for that reason, but I also enjoyed it. I think it was action-packed, a lot of things happened, and so for that reason as well, I think you should read it.
Okay. Yeah, I think you should read it because important stuff happened. I can't say I like it. That's it.
Oh, okay. I was like, and? Okay.
I was thinking about saying something else, but nah.
All right, fair enough.
That's it.
Well, hey, everybody, if that makes you interested enough to go check out the story for yourself and you have not done so already, or if you want to remind yourself, the top link in the description down below will take you right to this story so that you can read it for yourself. We try to remove as many barriers as possible so that you can get to reading the story. And then, of course, whether you leave here or whether you're staying, we would love it if you would stick around so that we can hear your opinions as well. Because we're going to give you our thoughts on the story and our review, but we want to hear from you down in the comments below, any and all thoughts that you might have. Did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? Are there things that you liked that we didn't talk about, disliked that we didn't talk about? Whatever the case may be, we want to hear from you. That's what the comments are for. Keep the conversation going.
Please.
Now, before we get on to the full review itself, hi, welcome to the channel. We had a lot going on here last week. A lot. And this week, a little bit less, but still our regular normal content, our streams on Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. In fact, this coming Friday, the day after this video comes out, we are starting our first ever playthrough of God of War 2, the original, on the PlayStation 2. Amy's first time ever seeing that game after having just seen God of War a few months ago. So definitely come check that out. We'd love to have you. And then every Monday, we play MTG Arena. So besides our early access stream, which we did last week and is on the channel live and available, which you can definitely go check out, and we encourage you to do so.
Yes.
Thank you to all of you that were there, by the way, and thanks to Wizards for sponsoring us for it. But this Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern will be the first time that we are playing Phyrexia All Will Be One on our regular Monday streams. Like I said, obviously there was the early access event. But we also have other channels, Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All. Links down in the description box below. And you should, wherever you are, here or at either of those, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so that you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, or, like I said, whenever we go live here on this channel. And then last but not least, since it's our most popular series over on Video Games for All, I will say that our Pokemon series, our Pokemon Sapphire playthrough, just ended this past Tuesday, which means Amy is starting Gen 4 for the first time ever this coming Tuesday. We hope that you'll join us. Like I said, Video Games for All, links down in the description box below. But now that all that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the full review itself. The first line of the story says, "The sounds of battle faded behind them as Jace, Kaito, and Kaya delved, blah, 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 blah." 6 paragraphs later. 6. The sounds of battle faded behind them. It sounded familiar to me.
Because it was exactly the same.
Now you might say, Joe, that's 6 paragraphs later, you were looking for it. No, it's 6 paragraphs later, and there were approximately, I may have wasted everybody's time, and by that I mean Amy's and my time, and counted, there are approximately 118 paragraphs in this story. So, 118 versus 6. They were very close to one another. Very close. It's just, I don't know.
I thought maybe it was going to be a thing that, like, you know, they kept repeating throughout the story, but no.
Nope. Just
never happened again.
Times. Nope.
Just, yep.
You wanted to talk about the quote, Kaya had a brief, shameful flash of wanting to step out of the way and just let him, Jace, fall. He was already lost. She was inviting a monster into a bolt hole from which where was no escaping. Probably should be there. I'm just reading it as it was written because they don't proofread the stories for their authors, it seems. Because that will not be caught by spell check, because where is still a word. It's just not the word that goes in that sentence. But that's also not what you wanted to talk about.
No. What do I say about that? You know...
Do I?
I feel like it's pretty fucked up. But... she knows he's turning Phyrexian, and she doesn't know when. And he's pretty powerful. And she's scared.
Yeah. And in fact, speaking of how powerful he is, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the quote that Jace says, where he says to Kaya, "You have no idea how much time and energy I spend not destroying the minds around me just because I can. Or how hard I've worked to find a way to move in a multiverse of such simplicity without doing endless damage." That's a very interesting line, and I'd be very curious to know if Shauna McGuire is a fan of the old Justice League cartoon. Because as soon as we read that line, I went and showed Amy the clip that some of you may now be thinking of that I've mentioned it, but there was a line from the Justice League cartoon, and maybe Superman has said it in the comics as well. I'm not a DC Comics fan, so if those of you that are out there and know this, let me know in the comments. We would love to learn new stuff.
Yeah.
But in the Justice League show, he's fighting what I'm going to say is Darkseid, because I believe that's correct, and he's just beating the crap out of him. And he said, look, I have a different problem from Batman, right? Batman was fighting Darkseid, and Superman said that man will fight until he has no breath remaining in his body, meaning Batman, Bruce Wayne. Superman said, I have a different problem. And he just starts beating the crap out of him. And he says, I live in a world that I feel like is made out of cardboard. I have to focus all the time on not using too much of my strength so that somebody doesn't get killed unnecessarily. And then basically uses that to say, on you, I don't have that problem. I can really let loose. And then, as you saw in that clip, punches him through multiple buildings, punches him down through the ground, making a gigantic crater, and still destroying a large portion of the city anyway.
Which I'm upset about.
Yep, which was kind
fight
of...
in the cosmos somewhere.
But
Fuckheads.
But regardless, but he still gives that same general speech of like, I'm super powerful, and I spend most of my energy not exerting that power. In fact, forcing that power in and down, and needing to constantly be aware of how hard I'm doing something, or not doing something too much, or too little, or whatever. Which honestly, when you think about it, probably has to be exhausting.
It would be if it was a real thing. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, that's immediately what I thought of. I know I'm the like pop culture guy around here, so that's what I compared it to, was that. Then we have the fights. So we go from a while of having Jace, Kaya, and Kaito going through, and then it bumps back to Elspeth and versus Ajani, and Tybalt versus Tyvar. I thought those were some pretty interesting fights, the way that they went down. There was a fair amount of jaw-jacking, which I really appreciate. I like when the enemies are taunting the good guys, if you will, and during the fight. So it's not just, oh, but I'm losing. Okay, but now I'm winning. It's like, it's like, okay, are they really gonna get into the other person's head enough to get them off their game so that they can beat them?
There were definitely a couple of moments where I was like, oh, shit.
Of things that were said,
Right.
right? Yeah. Yeah, and I like that. I like those moments of like, ooh, damn, okay, like real stuff was being said.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with this, and I'm not complaining about it, but I prefer that in a fight as opposed to, like, she got knocked back and she's gonna get stabbed through the head or something like that. And it's like, no, she's not. Because otherwise we would have seen the card of Elspeth getting stabbed through the head. Like, we would have. But those jaw-jacking moments back and forth of, like, emotional damage, right? We're on the internet. Emotional damage being done to her and attempted to be done to Tyvar. And actually, one of the things that you mentioned, I don't know if you want to just talk about it or you want me to bring it up.
No, you can bring it up, because I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Was Tybalt basically saying to Tyvar, he was like, look, there are a lot of times where I should be able to convince you that you're going to lose and that there's no use in doing what you're doing, but you're too stupid to realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hilarious and also very correct. He's just...
And also kind of what I said in one of these other jars.
Yep. It's very funny. So...
He has a lot of resolve. He resolves to do something. I don't know what it is, but...
Right. But I thought that was great, and then obviously... right. And then obviously, I mean, Tybalt was being an asshole, but Tybalt was always an asshole.
Yeah.
Johnny was being nice. And was doing so in such, like, a heart-wrenching way for Elspeth that, like... Elspeth was like, if he wasn't just being himself right now, it would be a lot easier for me to just kick him off this bridge.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to, like, fight for real, slash the tendons on the back of his legs, and just kick him over.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be hard for Elspeth to do to a Johnny, regardless of how he was acting.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, you were real mad that he was Phyrexianized, and I can't blame you at all, especially since multiple planeswalkers that I love have become Phyrexianized now, too.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of kept to his character as best they could in Phyrexian mode.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, that's why it was so hard for Elspeth, because he was being himself, and she was upset by that. Because, like I said, if she could have removed him from the figure that was in front of her, it would have been a lot easier. And instead, it was very much not. So, yeah, I get you.
Yep. And that's a mirror of real life, right? I mean, you're fighting an enemy,
right?
And I'm putting it in quotes because you're not fighting an enemy, you're fighting somebody else.
Yeah.
And they have their own reasons for doing what they're doing, or their own lives that they're trying to defend, and just like you are, you know? And so, you know, who's to say who's wrong? I mean, we can all look at the Phyrexia and say, okay, they're, like, imperialists, and they're, like, mind-controlling people, and, you know, making people into abominations and stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Stealing their bodily autonomy.
Yeah. And apparently also stealing their soul, because they, like, don't have any souls left or whatever. Because, like... They don't, like, become ghosts.
I was unclear on that. I was very unclear on that. Because not every Mirren that died becomes a Phyrexian, right?
Right.
So, like, if people die, they could still become spirits. It may just be something with Mirrodin, since it was a metallic plane originally, where ghosts cannot take hold there. I'm not exactly sure if that's a known thing, or, I mean... The fact that Kaya would know that makes perfect sense, and the fact that nobody else but Kaya would know that also makes perfect sense. Right. So, like, I would not be surprised. In fact, I'd be surprised if this was not the first time we've heard this. You know what I mean? Like, so...
I just figured it was, like, a Phyrexian thing, like, they just kind of sucked them up.
It's definitely possible that, like, because your body is still around and maybe your soul and your spirit are still trapped in there, so to speak, which would make a lot more sense if they're going to try to uncomplete these Phyrexian planeswalkers later.
Oh, yeah, retcon themselves, basically.
Well, again, not retcon them. If they're actually using the Cauldron of Eternity, maybe that will work. Maybe it will not, but... that if their spirit, if their soul is still in there, then it's a lot easier, and Kaya has already laid that groundwork by saying, hey, there's no ghosts here. There should be ghosts everywhere because all these people are dead. But if they're just trapped,
then they're not dead?
Yep.
Yeah.
During the fight with Tybalt and Tyvar, Tybalt makes reference to Tyvar about the fact that Tyvar was chosen for something that he could never be worthy of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like that was a little weird. It's like, why was he chosen then? He wouldn't have been chosen if he was never going to be worthy of it.
Well, the only other thing I could think of, by the way, because we talked about this, I didn't fully agree, but I still respect your point, of course. The only other thing I think of is, I mean, he's a prince, right? So you don't choose to become a prince. Your daddy's a king. You're a prince. Congratulations. You were born, a.k.a. here's what you've been chosen for, I suppose.
A.k.a. it's not chosen, right? Like, your duty is very separate from your destiny. And I think being chosen to do something is your destiny, not your duty.
Okay.
Your duty is something that you're born into, or that you make a choice at some point and it leads to you having a duty to do certain things, right? You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to get this particular job. And then, the things I have to do for this job are my duty now. Yeah, to me, being chosen to do something particular is a destiny thing. It's not or it's more direct. Like, someone specifically is the person who chose you. Like, they had lots of options, and they were like, that person there.
Okay. Or does he mean, or maybe he means him being a planeswalker? That's a pretty unique thing. I don't know, man. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? We want to know. Because it's definitely an interesting discussion, and I mean, that could just get into a discussion of people who may or may not believe in destiny, and that's also fine if that's something you want to talk about. We're not going to be like, but don't talk about destiny, though. Talk about whatever you want. And so we get to kind of the resolutions of all these characters' stories, right? One way or another. Again, it's inevitable resolutions. Tybalt uses his doubt magic, if you will, or his influential magic, to make Elspeth doubt. And when Elspeth doubts, her hope dims or goes lower. And so Tyvar feels more hopeless.
Her happy-o-meter gets turned down ever so slightly.
Yeah. And Elspeth experiences more doubt and hopelessness or helplessness. And then they both begin to lose. Tyvar comes up with an idea and uses his magic to turn Tybalt into the Glimmer Void metal casing or shell. Which is great because we learned previously that when Tyvar does this to someone, that coating suppresses their magic. They can't use their magic anymore. So when doing that to Tybalt, it means that Elspeth is no longer under the influence of the influence, and
we learned that from Magneto, actually.
And her hope sprouts eternal. And Tyvar feels it, she feels it, she's able to get back at her, in her fight with Ajani, and is able to fight him into unconsciousness, basically. She takes him out, but doesn't kill, doesn't kick him off the bridge, just knocks him unconscious by hitting him on the back of the head. Tyvar stops Tybalt by grabbing the tails, stabbing them into his heart, and then knocking him off the bridge onto a bridge below, where he slams hard onto it and stops moving. Jace gets stabbed by Elspeth and falls, only to rise again when Elish Norn shows up. Kaito, Tyvar, Kaya are fine. Elspeth, gone to a place beyond the multiverse.
No.
I don't know when we will see her again. I said that about Teferi at the end of Brothers War, and I suspected it would be a while. Spoilers, it will not be a while. See you in the next episode or the one after. But, so we will see how long it takes us to find out Elspeth's fate as well. Will it be in March of the Machines? Will it be in March of the Machines prologue? Will it be in whatever it is? Whatever it ends up being. And then when Elish Norn shows up, she shows up with Tamio, whom we have not seen yet at all in these stories.
Right. I think they mentioned her, though.
Sure. Well, of course they mention her in terms of, like, they're missing her, they know she's here somewhere, and they haven't seen her or whatever.
Yeah, they were, like, talking about the core or whatever, the,
Surgical Bay
Surgical
is
Bay.
where she is, because that's, like, her area now.
Yeah.
Then we had Nahiri come out with Elish Norn. Finally fully completed. Jace gets up and joins her. And finally Nissa comes out and joins her. And that is supposed to be the reveal that Nissa is actually completed in this story. We will hear more about that in a side story, I'm almost certain, but maybe not. But that is how Nissa becomes completed. Off camera, we have no knowledge.
Right.
What I thought was a little interesting was, I was like, okay, so no Veraska and no Luca.
Right.
Now we know that they're completed, we know that they're lost. But no Luca makes a bit of sense because Luca is in with Vorinclex, right? But if Nissa was turned or completed shortly after Luca was, because Nissa was the only other person with Luca, and Luca was completed, wouldn't she also be with Vorinclex / Glissa, by the way? I know, Glissa and Nissa being in the same place would be dumb, but they've done it before.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that it would make sense that Nissa would be with Luca, or near where Luca is with Vorinclex. It's just that
she left, though, which, right? Because, I mean, that's the only reason why she got completed.
But again, we don't know. Well, no, if she stayed with Luca, it wouldn't have helped. He was a Phyrexian.
Yeah, that's true.
So she left being with completed Luca, Glissa, and Vorinclex, which seems like a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
So wherever she ended up going obviously wasn't any better, but if she was there, or it was shortly thereafter, like, she probably would have just stayed. Like, why is she with Elish Norn specifically? Except that they needed a way to show that Nissa was completed. And if they're not going to do it in a story, since, by the way, the 2 remaining side stories are about Teferi and Tezzeret, so there's no information about... Yeah. So there's no information about Nissa.
I'm so tired of that guy.
Well, we will find out in that story when it comes up, but just, what about Nissa? She was one of the, like, Origins 5.
Yep, they don't care. So was Jace.
Well, yeah, but Jace got a story. Jace, we know how he was completed, we know why. He had a big emotional moment with his girlfriend, significant other, whatever, you know.
And Jace is the face of magic.
Not anymore, but yes. He was for a time.
This is just the planeswalker that they don't know how to write for, which is why she's now Phyrexian.
She's not the only one. There's lots of them that they don't know how to write for, and so now they're Phyrexian.
Yes, I know. All I'm saying is, why would they write for her then?
Yeah. But yeah, it feels very much like, oh, by the way, also Nissa. Okay, story's over. It's like, but that doesn't make any sense.
Because they don't care about her.
Yeah. So maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. Like I said, 2 more side stories to go over the next next week. We're hoping, we're going to try our best. In fact, come to our stream on Friday, you'll hear an announcement from us and maybe why. Well, hopefully you know why we didn't have a video on Monday. We did a lot last week and over the weekend. So apologies, but also thank you for your patience. And then going into next week, we should have 2 more videos coming out of JaARs. We will do our best to do it this weekend. We're a little busy. But we will talk about that on Friday.
Yes, so please check out that stream because there's a lot to talk about and a lot to do.
Correct. And it's the first stream of God of War 2, and so we're going to try that out as well. So we would love to have you join us. Please don't forget, as I mentioned, to subscribe and ring that bell so that you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out. Like whenever we get those jars out to you, we're going to try as best we can to get them out as quickly as possible within reason, right? We're not putting them out tomorrow and the next day or whatever. And whenever we go live on stream, I'm beginning to lose my voice more and more, so we are going to end this video very quickly. So I apologize. Again, I did a lot of talking last week too. But please, or actually I should say, being able to say, hey, you know what? That awful thing that they did in completing a Johnny still had him acting like himself and using proper characterization. And I think that's a great way of us joining all of you as we show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
Because, like, I can be really angry about it, but still agree with you that they did a pretty good job of him, letting him be who he is, kind of thing. So
I can't say so much for Nissa or Nahiri or...
They didn't say anything, so we don't know.
I mean, I guess Jace was fine characterization, I feel like. But Nahiri and Nissa, meh. Vraska, eh.
Well, Vraska wasn't here.
Not in this story, but...
You mean when the like, very brief moment where she was completed and then turned Jace?
Oh, I meant that whole time.
Oh, okay. Alright, fair enough. So yes, any and all thoughts that you might have, we would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Let us know. Like I said, agree with us, disagree with us, somewhere in between. Something that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, positive or negative. Let us know in the comments down below. We would love, love, love to hear from you. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.